Welcome, Darryl, to the show. Darryl, you're based in Massachusetts, graphic designer, art director, known for working with many estates, like the Dead, Garcia, Joni Mitchell, as well as new artists today. So I just wanted to thank you for appearing on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Is that a Primal Scream shirt you're
It
wearing?
is. Yeah, it's a Screamadelica shirt.
Did you design that?
No. It's a bootleg. I was given it like a couple years ago, and it's literally like on its last legs. I've like sewed it because I love it so damn much. But yeah, yeah. It's not official, but I love it to death. So Primal Scream, please do a real one, and I will buy it to replace this one.
Working with so many archival estates,
Yeah.
what are your feelings on the bootleg versus the licensed sanctioned route that people take?
Oh man. Yeah, so bootlegs, I mean, it's a hard because aesthetically, I think bootleg is very interesting. I think that's, definitely like where I'm always looking, like how can you um do something interesting with the assets that live out there? A lot of, there, especially with stuff with like 90s bands, 90s, 2000 stuff that's been like, kind of discontinued for the better part of like 2 decades. That's really interesting to me. Like, how can you bring back some of that design? And sometimes bands don't necessarily realize that's what their fans want. So I feel like sometimes, like when I'm working with a group, I'm like, oh, hey, like this is really great design from like the 80s. And they're like, really? Where'd you find that? I was like, Google, eBay, whatever. Like, I always do a deep dive before I start with somebody, especially older acts. And I think it's just a perpetual influence. Like, what existed decades before? But at the same time, if a band doesn't want to take that jump and reproduce something, I think it's interesting when somebody takes it in their own hands and puts their own spin on it. Like there's just, pretty interesting stuff out there on Instagram that you can see. There's a bunch of different comments of like these people that do uh bootleg designs for, much to the hatreds of band managers and all that kind of stuff. But
Will you ever do a mood board then for an artist and pull in some of these bootlegged kind
oh
of
yeah,
just say
absolutely.
like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
this is what's
Yeah.
out there. You
Yeah.
may or may not want to go down this route.
Yeah, absolutely. It's perpetually like something on a mood board, and I like if it's not me putting together a mood board, it's something from a client. Like they're like, oh, hey, I saw this thing of like another artist. We thought it looked pretty interesting. This is an influence that we want you to consider. Um, I think I live in a really between two realms. Like I can live in a really dirty, distressed design, but I also can do like really clean, really nice, elegant design. So like I'm not opposed to like somebody being like, oh, hey, how can you like really mess up this design and make it look a little more interesting, a little more busy? Like
Yeah,
I can definitely do that. And I think that's like, bootleg stuff probably exists a little bit more in that realm sometimes. You see like shirts out there that like I mean, this is not a good example because it's just an album cover. But I've seen ones where it's like Primal Scream here, and then it's like another logo here, and then another logo over here, and then like 5 logos on the back. It's like,
it's
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 like
something
walking
that
at
it's something that a band would have never have done back in the
oh
day,
yeah,
basically.
absolutely not. But as a fan being like, how many damn different designs can I like stick on his shirt? And it's like I had a friend call it ADHD design at one point, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like that makes sense. Sure. Yeah.
For sure.
But yeah.
Can you step and to take us into the design process
Yeah.
with estates or with a new artist when you're
Yeah.
given an assignment for a new project? Like, how does it
Yeah.
generally come about? And really, what is that initial process generally like with those
Yeah.
folks?
Um, I mean, it's kind of so it's two-sided. Like, I mean, there's definitely like when I've done projects with like Little Feet, like in Rhino and Warner with Little Feet, like we're looking really at the assets that existed at that time, you know. Um, so it's like, we're looking at not only the photography that the band shot around that point, that time, like if it's live shots or candid shots or studio shots that they had done, pressed photos or whatever. But we're also looking at like, what do the tape boxes look like at the recording studio? Do they draw all over the top of them? Are they just handwriting? Like, there's a little pieces of assets there that we could pull from. Um, so I mean, that's that side of it. But then there's stuff that I've done for the Garcia estate where it's, for lack of a better description, it's like revisionist history, like creating a poster for a show that didn't have a poster. The show like
Mm.
happened 50 years ago. And at that point, it's kind of a free for all, in my opinion. It's like, okay, yes, we're looking at assets, we're looking at like what design looked like from that time period, potentially even in that venue. Sometimes like when you're looking at San Francisco venues, like they had particular designers who are working with them at that point. So I want to have that influence, but at the same exact time, obviously have my own influence, but then also look at like what other people were doing at that time, other designers, like it's like if the show's from like mid 1970s, you're not going to do like a psychedelic San Francisco poster of the circa 1967. It's just like there's a massive
Been
disconnect at
done.
that point. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's been done, and it's like I think personally, there's people out there now that do it really, really well. Um, I think in some kind of capacity I do it well, but I'm also like I feel like I've kind of broadened my like taste and my influences and the way that I tackle art, that I don't have to lean too far on like, those 1960 isms and stuff like that. So
And people aren't coming to you because they want an exact recreation. They're looking
yes.
for a
Yeah.
fresh
Yeah.
vision.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And like, I mean, the Garcia, like last year I did a poster for, it was a 1976 show, if I remember correctly, from the Keystone, which was a venue that he played a lot. And it's a San Francisco poster to Jerry blowing like fog over the top of like the San Francisco Bridge. So like we wanted the influence of San Francisco, we wanted the influence of the club, we also wanted the influence of Jerry. So that was a pretty fun one to dive into, for sure. So
Are you a massive Jerry Dead fan?
yeah.
Is that some of your history that you're
Oh
able
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
now bring to bear in a professional
Oh
capacity?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're asking me. I actually went to a Jerry Garcia symphonic show last night here in Boston. So,
Okay.
uh, Garcia stays obviously clients. They were here in town and they invited me out, and it was a tremendous amount of fun. But yeah, I'm going back to like my history. Like in the mid '90s, I
Yeah.
got pretty deep into music, and I got very deep into what the San Francisco scene was at that point. Like obviously it's the Dead, it's Janice, it's Dennis, like Quicksilver Messenger Service, Moby Grape, all those like classic ballroom bands I was really, really deep into. But then at the same time, I was also listening to like Pavement and Phish and a lot of jazz. I had like a pretty wide variety and taste. I was listening to Resonance a lot as well. Like they're a perpetual influence, not just visually, but also orally. So I yeah, I like they're yeah, like San Francisco scene, all that 60s, San Francisco 70s, all that kind of stuff is like a perpetual influence these days. So
But that was always a intention, is trying to make a professional career out of this love of music. Like how did you get into
oh,
making that sort of connection?
I mean,
How'd you make it work?
yes and no. I would say when I was daydreaming as a kid, like in my bedroom, and I'm flipping through like album art, like all the CDs, like this is like mid 90s, late 90s is like the beginning of the reissue boom. So you have
Yep.
like Ryko Disc and Rhino reissuing like classic albums on CDs. So I'm seeing a lot of that artwork for the first time in person, not just like something I'm seeing like at a record store, like a big record, like on a shelf that's like dusty and I'm not necessarily sure what I'm looking for. Uh, but I went to school in the late 90s, early 2000s. I studied design. My capsule project for my senior year was like creating a record label. It was, it wasn't real. It was just kind of like this idea of, it was like, what was it called? Uh, Demure Records? Demure or something? I can't remember what it's called. I have to pull it up. It's pretty primitive looking. I was definitely influenced by like Constellation Records out of Canada at that point. I was listening to a lot of Godspeed and like the other bands were on that label. Uh, and but then I got to school, like I was kind of like I mean, I was trading CDs or whatever for like, a poster at a local club kind of deal. Like, it wasn't like tremendous amount of money. It was just kind of like for the love of it. And then I moved here to Boston in 2004 and fell in with a band called Sunburn Hand of the Man, who had like connections like Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth. And their main guy, John Maloney, started introducing me to like various people here in the scene and started allowing me to like start making posters for their shows. And it kind of snowballed, uh, for lack of a description, with them, but I was only freelancing at night. I had a full-time job. I was working in the sneaker industry at like Saucony and New Balance and Clarks and stuff. And it wasn't like I was just maybe doing like one record a year, two records a year. Like it was just kind of like, a friend who approached me like, "Hey, I saw that poster. Like, which could you do something for like this record?" I'm like, "Yeah, cool." It wasn't like I wouldn't say I was necessarily serious about it, but it was definitely like, oh, this is fun to do. This little extra cash, get into
But you were
shows for free.
always, but you were always into design then. I mean, you
Oh
always
yeah,
had.
yeah. I had a day job doing like catalogs and like point of purchase design for like, major brands.
Okay.
And I continued to do it. And then in 2018, I was laid off from my job at Clark's. And I was like, I don't really want to be in the sneaker industry anymore, or the boot industry, whatever you want to call it. I was kind of bored of corporate world. Like it was just kind of not fun. It's the same damn thing every single day, like putting together a catalog using the same font. Like I didn't have to use my brain at all. Like it was a nice paycheck, but there was nothing creative about that job at all. And I was slowly kind of at that point working with like some larger bands. There was some stuff with like Kurt Vile and like Sonic Youth related groups and stuff like that was going on in the background. And at that point, I just kind of started working on my contacts that I had in the music industry. And I'm like, hey, I got laid off. Do you need anything? Like, do you want to do something? And it was slow. It was good. Like Light in the Attic came in at like late 2018 and they started throwing me like a little bit of work here and there. It was funny. I was actually doing like billboards for them, which was like not too far off from like what my past corporate world was. But I was like, oh yeah, I could do billboards. Yeah, billboards are easy to do. Like I know how to like spec those out and make those look good and all that kind of stuff. So, and then it snowballed. I just literally like I hate saying this term, but like COVID worked for me.
Mhm.
Like I like everybody kind of went off the road and everybody started doing records at that point. So I just started doing a ton of record art. Like it was just I went from doing like 5 records a year to like 15 records in 2020. And then now I'm up to probably like between 30 and 40 records a year between all my clients. So,
That's how many projects you
yeah,
typically
yeah,
working on it on a yearly basis.
yeah. At any given point in my year, there's probably like between 5 to 10 projects in some kind of state of chaos, like organized chaos, I should say. It's like some of them are just starting and some of like I had phone calls yesterday about Record Store Day for Black Friday, like
Yeah.
that's coming up on us. So, my, I'm some days I don't know what the actual calendar day is because like my brain is already like, oh, we're in like, we're halfway through 2025. We're already kind of starting to think about like what 2026 releases look like. So I'm perpetually in some kind of state of what day is it? So, but
For sure.
yeah,
And what is that split or balance? And do you
yeah,
try to ideally take on different? I know you do a lot of
yeah,
poster work, you
yeah,
do a lot of merch in addition
yeah,
to record packaging.
yeah,
Where is that split? And is it, an ideal scenario where you're working on different mediums at one time
yeah,
to kind of keep the energy flowing
yeah,
in a positive way?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say I think these days, like it's probably like 70% records, 30% merch. It's
Okay.
not maybe like a year or two ago, it was more like 50-50, but I've definitely leaned more on the record side. I just enjoy doing records a lot. Like I think there is a really fun aspect of like holding something physical in the end, and that's not to say you don't get the same thing for posters, but I become a little more particular about like who I want to work with on posters because that's a whole other creative side of me that like I have to tap in. Like when you're doing a record, you're like literally thinking like 12 by 12. When you're thinking like a poster, it's like 18 by 24, or in some cases, like Chris Stapleton's people have been asking for a lot of diptychs lately. So it's like you're thinking about double the amount of poster and like how do you make two posters work side by side. So I become a little more particular, but at the same time, like I really enjoy all the clients that I have, like on the merch side of things. Like I said, there's Chris Stapleton, there's stuff for Phish, there's stuff for like Joni, there's stuff for the Dead. So it's a pretty interesting, eclectic group of people, which I think makes it pretty fun. I get to kind of be a chameleon in some aspect. Like I have there's no part of me that's like, oh, today I'm doing a poster for Pavement and tomorrow I'm doing a poster for Joni. Like they're both one and the same to me, but I can live in two different, very different worlds of design. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It seems like the
yeah,
poster designs that you've done, and in
yeah,
general, I find with a lot of like live shows,
yeah,
there's not necessarily direct correlation with the artist to what you're
Mhm.
putting out. How do
No.
you come up with these inspirations and these designs? Because they're, really, they're incredible, but not
Yeah.
necessarily directly
Yeah.
related.
Um,
Like what,
I'm,
like where does that inspiration come from on a poster?
it's a lot of different things, like I have a box underneath me that's just newspaper clippings. That's like, or book clippings, like books like I bought over the years for like a dollar or two or whatever. And I'm like, oh, this little framing looks interesting, or like this photo I can see like do some kind of collage with, or this spot illustration that was like 60 years old and nobody's gonna really care if I like redraw it and like make it into something else kind of thing. So I mean, there's that scrap box. There is me doom scrolling at midnight because I can't sleep and I'm like flipping through Instagram or flipping through Google. There's me driving my car in, Boston or some other city or wherever I'm driving, and I see a sign for a garage sale, and I'm like, "Oh, that type looks cool. Like, let me make a U-turn and take a photo of that." So much to my like, I mean, especially like when we go to New York City and like we're in like all the different boroughs, and like I've angered my family many many times where I'm like, "Oh, I gotta make a U-turn. I want to take a photo of that," or "Oh, hey, you're in the back seat. Can you take a photo of that? I need a picture of that," for some kind of reference.
It's for work, right? It
Yeah,
has to.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I really look like inspirations all around, like it's it's which I think is pretty damn healthy to like live that way. Maybe it's a little bit chaotic for some artists, but like to me, it's like I just have I mean, there's like a folder on my hard drive that's just called reference, and it's just JPEGs of things I've screenshotted or things that I've come across on Google or things that somebody's like passed along to me, and I just dump it in a folder. And maybe like a couple times a year where I'm feeling like kind of like stuck on an idea, I'll just start like flipping through that folder and being like, oh, okay, that type looks interesting. This color palette looks interesting. Just things I just there's no organization to it. It's literally just a chaotic folder of like reference.
Yeah.
Um, and it trickles down. That could be for a poster. It could be typed for a record. It's there's just really there's no like that Phish like album that you have behind you.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
elements of that were pulled from like various design pieces I found over the years. Like um, that's like a extremely perfect example. Like they gave me a handful of photos that they had, and then everything else is just a collage of illustrations and uh, things that I drew and brought into it. So yeah,
Like something like this. Did you
yeah.
illustrate these?
Those particular things were like a clip art book from God, what was that? Like late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in there. It was just like some pattern book that a friend turned me on to, and like I was hunting down for many, many years. And it's literally just spot illustrations that like, there's no restriction on using them at all. So I just like I scanned them, tweaked them a little bit, colored them up, like I just kind of, like take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's like making soup some days.
A bouillabaisse of
Yeah,
design?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And like the color palette, if I remember correctly, for that one in particular, like I was at a show a week after those shows, and I'm one of those people kind of like I can deno like I there's certain colors like I can be like, oh, okay, like I remember that show, and for some reason, purple is like stuck in my head for that show. So like when I approached that project, I was like, I know I want some kind of like purple base because like that's what I remember in my head, like the lights being that night was a lot of purples and greens. So when I approached that project and Julia from Phish was like, oh, okay, what's your mood board? Like, what are you thinking? I was like, well, 25, 30 years ago when I was at that concert, like I remember purples, I remember greens, I remember oranges. So like that's like that palette like extremely came from like some personal experience like 3 decades ago.
So you're taking a very almost abstract
Yeah.
impression memory and then
Yeah.
translating it
Yeah.
into a
Yeah.
physical,
Yeah.
tangible
Yeah.
manifestation.
Yeah. Especially in that case. I can't say that happens all the time, but in that particular one, it was very personal for sure. So
But you seem to
yeah.
be known for usage of color
Yeah.
and your typography and
Yeah.
fonts. I feel
Yeah.
as if you have a very
Yeah.
special
Yeah.
relationship with those. Is
Yeah.
that, would you say, a key
Oh yeah.
distinction with your design?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm always collecting books from the type books. I have a bookcase full at this point, just type books. I mean, it's to the point that like I had a friend last year. He was like, "Oh, I was like cleaning out my dad's basement," and he was like a letterpress guy, and he found all these old type books, like catalog books of like things that I hadn't seen. I'm sure other people hadn't seen for many, many, many years, like in some artwork and stuff. And he handed me those, so I started like kind of working through those as well, and like scanning those. And like in some instances, like they didn't have the full alphabet, so I'd have to like create like a letter or two. Even sometimes the numbers would have to be created. So I'm just perpetually looking for interesting type. Like I have books that go back to the 20s. I have like clippings in my box down here that are just they're like modern, like pulled from like modern magazines. Like uh, so. But then I'm also like there's like the really great website. What is the what font or 19? What is that website? What font? Oh God, fonts in use. Like that website, the constant catalog for me. Like they have like you can go in and look at 1970s fonts, you can look at 1980s fonts, 1960s fonts, and it's like you can just scroll through pages against pages against pages, and it has all these typographic examples. Like it's album covers, it's ads, it's posters, it's book covers, like, and then they have all these really great designers behind the scenes that are figuring out what all those typefaces are.
Mm.
So that particular website is a great resource for myself, and I know for a lot of other designers, I always perpetually go to that one. Especially if I'm working on something like 1970s related, because I'm trying to like pinpoint a certain font that I can't figure out what it is. Like I have a pretty good eye, I have like a pretty good catalog of stuff, but occasionally I really get tripped up on some like esoteric, weird typeface, and it's like sometimes it'll be on that website, and then you're like going down like a deep Google hole to see if there's a scan of that typeface somewhere. If not, then I'm redrawing it from scratch. So
That's what I was going to
yeah,
ask. Are you then
yeah,
oftentimes remanipulating that
hmm,
font and tweaking it
yeah,
ever so
yeah,
slightly?
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. And like especially some of the ones that are just unable to be found, like they don't exist like in a digital font. It's finding like a piece of it and redrawing like the rest of it that I need. Or even like if I have a full typeface in case of some of the books, like I have like A to Z and including letters and all that kind of stuff, I'll even go in a step further and start redrawing sections. And I'm like, okay, I like this typeface, but I don't like how the three looks, or I don't like how the O looks. I wish it was a little more circular, not so much like elongated or whatever it is. So uh it's really kind of uh it's a good bad problem to have, because like I can send myself down a rabbit hole pretty quickly of like what I'm seeing in my brain compared to like what I have found. Sometimes it can come pretty quickly. Sometimes it's like spending like an hour or two or longer sitting here like redrawing certain letters that I'm like, oh, this didn't work for the way that I see it in my head. So
And is that part of the creative art direction that you embark on any new job? You really do
yeah.
this a deep dive, or is that something that really has occurred prior to you working on a new project,
Um,
or is it a bit of both?
I would say it's a bit of both for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking out there and seeing like what other designers do. So like at a certain point, it's like, for a while there was the font Davida that's like kind of like a floral kind of chunky font that's very 1970s. You see a lot on a lot of a lot of book covers from that time period. A lot of people were using that at one point, and so I was like, I'm not going to use that because it's like on a lot of different album covers. It's like it's kind of being overused at this point. So I was like trying to find things that are kind of similar to it. If a project called for it, I was trying to find something like similar, but like different. Because I always want the album cover or the poster or whatever it is to like pop out. I want somebody to be like, oh, well, what is that? Like, that doesn't look like anything I've seen. It's funny I'm saying Davida because I can actually see it like on the Nancy and Lee album cover back there. It's that typeface is on the album cover. So that's like
Okay.
that's a perfect example because that is a
Yeah.
1970s album and that's a 1970s font. So for a while there, like I said, you were seeing a lot of like modern art for like 1970s inspired stuff. So I was like consciously trying to like stay away from that. But at the same time, that ampersand drove me absolutely nuts because whoever designed the original cover for that was a hand drawn ampersand. I could not place that ampersand anywhere. I went through like multiple books, it could not place it. So we ended up like scanning the cover. I redrew that ampersand because it was a little like jagged. So like, and even like the end on that, like the original designer added that little extra like little pop off the left hand side of the L there, or the end.
Little
So,
teardrop kind of.
yeah. So um yeah, I'm always just looking for something that's a little bit different. Like I want to like I don't want to hand over the same exact thing over, um time after time after time. Like if I'm working with a client, I want them to get something distinct, something unique, something that they're not going to get from anybody else.
Well,
So
that's why people are hiring you.
yeah,
And on that vein, I wanted to touch upon the ongoing work that you do,
yeah,
certainly with a number of
yeah,
clients we both share. I'm talking about
yeah,
like Numero Group,
yeah, yeah,
Light in the Attic, even labels
yeah,
like No Quarter Records. So,
yeah, yeah,
all projects we've worked on together,
yeah, yeah,
and I assume that is why you continue to get new work from them, is because you're
yeah,
constantly bringing new ideas,
yeah,
or if it's part of an
yeah,
archival series like
yeah,
the Nancy Sinatra,
yeah,
you're able to make it cohesive, but equally
yeah,
bring something new to each of the various
yeah,
releases.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, especially like the reissue stuff. Like I love doing the reissue stuff because there's part of me that likes just drinking coffee and like photo retouching and like drawing stuff. And like I always like consciously, like when I go into those projects, like the reissue projects, I want everything to be period exact, especially if it's like a punk band. Like you're not going to put like a 1970s typeface on a punk band thing unless if it was like ironically used. But even like the type choices that I make, like in the booklets, like I want that particular typeface to be like equivalent or like of that time. Like the Ida box set that we just did for Numero Group. That's
Yep.
like a perfect example. Like the original designer used Universe across like all the packaging, for like all the like the ancillary kind of pieces, like the credits and all that kind of stuff. So like when we went into the bigger production of the bigger booklet, the bigger box set, I was like, well, that designer used Universe. Universe was very popular in the 2000s when that record came out. So it's like, we're going to continue that. We're not going to switch it over to like Helvetica. We're not going to switch it to like Futura. We're not going to switch it to some other like sans serif font because it's not going to look like it came from that packaging idea that the original designer had. Like I never want something to go completely sideways. Like I want it to like harmoniously look like it's from like the original reissue or the original release all the way to the reissue, that it's like cohesive. Because there's times like some of these like little fee projects that we're working on recently, like we're doing CDs, and the CDs, like the first issues of the CDs on the 80s and the 90s, like it doesn't even have the back cover. Like it's literally just like a white cover in a jewel case, and it's like they just chose whatever the typeface that they were using for all the reissues at that point. So it's a lot of to me, it's like going back and paying respect to the original artwork and the original artist and making sure that everything is like um, represented like the way that they saw it from the day that they designed it originally. And then, but like going to like No Quarter and like working with, there's stuff for like Michael Hurley that we've done, and Nathan Salzberg, James Elkington. It's working hand in hand with those guys and like having phone calls and meetings with them where we discuss like what they want their artwork to look like. It's a lot of times it's me helping an artist get something out of their head, and onto the screen. So, which is a lot of fun, because like sometimes, like in the case of like James Elkington, he had a really great uh, painting slash kind of collage piece that was like the background for the recent cover that we just did. And it took a lot of time to get like that typeface correct, to get like the colors correct. We were going back and forth on just dialing in and making sure that it looked correct. So um, sorry, I went off on a tangent and I can't remember where we were going.
No, no worries. But it sounds like
Yeah,
you really collaborate as much
yeah,
as possible,
yeah, yeah,
either with the estate or ideally, if the artist is
yeah,
living,
yeah, yeah,
meeting with them, whether it's
yeah,
via Zoom or perhaps in person, to
yeah,
be able to capture their vision.
yeah, 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 exactly. So, and I mean, there's in some cases people are just like, go do you, which is fun. It's like we don't have any idea. Like, just here's a couple photos. Like uh, what do you see? And I'll like run through a bunch of different ideas. As I was saying to a friend last night, there's a perpetual photos folder of rejects, rejects in a good way. It's like, oh, this is like really cool, but we feel this one a little bit more. So let's pursue that one. And then that folder of album art is like sitting there where I can kind of go back and reference and be like, well, I really did like that typeface. I like that execution on that one. Can we try it over here in this new artist or whatever it ends up being for, and trying it there. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think that's kind of like one of the fun aspects of being a designer is like you could produce a lot, but then you go down like a really like a tightened path of like what you're trying to go for. So yeah.
And on that note, what other advice or sort of tips would you offer
Yeah.
prospective designers or even
Yeah.
prospective or current label owners
Yeah.
or artists that are really looking to just better their artwork
Yeah.
or their craft?
Yeah. I mean,
There's a lot
one
to
is
take in
like,
there, but
yeah, there's a lot. I mean, to me, it's twofold. Like I would say like don't like I would say over deliver, like if you're feeling something and like to me, like I got to get all the options out of my head before like I like it will hand something in. So there's sometimes like I'll do two different album covers for an artist because I'm like, oh, I kind of can visualize exactly what I want this to look like or what you want to look like. So we're only looking at like two options. But then there's times like I'll have a folder like or a file, a PDF file, and it has like 8 different options in it, because it's like I had to get all those pieces out of my head to be like, okay, these are all the options I see in my head. Like, where do you want to go from that? So like over delivering is never a bad thing, and that's from just even initial concept to even, where you take the project over the whole arch of it, or arc of it. Uh, like it just one, have fun with it, or I should say two, have fun with it. If it gets frustrating, step away. Like don't force something, like if you're trying to like make something happen, forcing it is going to make it look worse is what I've always found in my case. So it's like if I'm
mm,
trying to like force a typeface into a design that like is happening or not happening, there's sometimes I just need to close that file, walk away. Sometimes it could be 15 minutes. It could be like me going to have lunch, taking a walk, coming back, opening it back up and be like, okay, now I can see like where this needs to be, or this typeface isn't working, or this illustration is not working. Like that's gonna be stripped out. We're gonna go this way. So there's that. And then there's also, to me, I like don't hesitate to get your hands dirty. Like we live in a really like computerized world. And to me, I did an album cover from Marshall Allen recently, Marshall Allen from the Sun Ra Orchestra.
yeah, we worked on
And
that project. I didn't
oh, you did?
realize that
Okay.
you did a design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That one in particular, like we tried a bunch of typefaces, but I bought a bunch of like really cool calligraphy pens last summer. And I was just like, maybe something's here, like in handwriting, and it's like trying a bunch of different papers, like trying computer paper, trying draft paper, trying just like even my kids construction paper, because like when you put a marker on it, it bleeds a little bit differently,
Mm.
compared to like what if you use like computer paper or something kind of glossy. uh Trying different pens, trying different mediums. I bought a bunch of Letraset last year, so I've been kind of doing like trying to bring some Letraset like scratch off kind of stuff back into the artwork. I just want something to look authentic and interesting, and not just be like, oh, I got this typeface, I downloaded it, I set it up on Illustrator or InDesign or whatever it is, and I called it a day. Like it's never the way I want to work. Like I'm trying to perpetually push it. So yeah, I think like don't hesitate to get your hands dirty. Like use paint, use any kind of physical medium that you have your hands on, and scan it in. Or even like I did a poster last year or 2 years ago for Pat Irwin of the band Sus, and it was for God, what was the book called? I can't remember what the name of the book was, but I got the book and I cut up the book. Like it was like just I literally cut it into pieces. It was like doing that whole like um line by line of a sentence and then like taping it down on a piece of paper. Like that whole design was just done like on a piece of paper and then it was scanned and like manipulated from that point on, you know. I think that's perpetually fun. I think I have my old design teachers from when I was like in college who the first year didn't allow us to touch a computer. We had to hand comp type. You know, like we were like doing Helvetica and Universe. Like we'd have to do the whole alphabet like on, you know, lines and then like fill them in with gouache and all that kind of stuff. So like that's like existed in me. Like I know what good stuff looks like, but I also know what kind of imperfections that I could get from it that I think are interesting. Uh, I think, you know, another idea that I always kind of live on is like, to me, artwork should be like jazz. You know, it's like there's good notes, there's bad notes, but like whatever that bad note is, like the next note is what the next note is the one that matters. You know, so like you can have imperfections, you can have like, you know, weird little pieces that add character to a design, but make sure that you're like complementing it with some other piece, you know, like that it shouldn't, you know, be a total mess. Like it should be a cohesive, interesting piece that has maybe a little bit of mess underneath it. So,
Or organized chaos.
yeah, yeah. Organized chaos is a word that I always come back to, you know, or another creed that we have in our family and in my life personally is like never a dull moment, you know? So like, don't hesitate to like live in the chaos of everything that you're trying to create, you know? Like I said, I have stuff underneath me that I'm referencing. I have stuff above me and like, there's just, you know, I kind of try to live in all the influence that I have, you know, and it could be physical pieces that are sitting in front of me, and there could be things I screenshotted on Instagram that I'm doom scrolling at night and looking at, you know, or books that I found at like a bookstore or something. So, but yeah, don't like I think like in like another thing is like don't hesitate to be inspired by anything and everything. You know, like I tell clients like when we start a project, like send me an inspiration folder and it could literally be like illustrations that you found. It could be, you know, like I mentioned earlier, like making a U-turn and taking a photo of like a sign that you saw because like the colors look cool, the typography look cool or whatever it is. It's like don't hesitate to just dump a big folder on me because like I want to see what you're thinking as much as I want to like deliver to you what I'm thinking. So yeah.
Because if they send that to you, they don't know how you might interpret
Yeah.
their
Yep.
mood board and where
Mhm.
you might be then drawing
Yep.
inspirations from
Yep.
to potentially ultimately wind up with
Yeah.
something that neither of you could have imagined.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the fun thing is like, you know, is with design and this particular career is like I never know what one day is going to be to like the next. Like I have a general idea like what's going on during the week, but there could be something like pops up in the middle of the week where a client will be like, "Oh, we need this poster for an event that we're doing." Like, what can you pull together? You know, and it's sometimes a quick 30-minute design can just free up your brain and you'll go back to the next thing that you were working on, the other thing you were working on, and be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, this like I can see a little bit of influence there." It's like, it's just, uh, it's really just like kind of like living in the moment, for lack of a better description, and just like I said, like jazz to me is like a perpetual influence. It's like what's that next note going to be, and just where are you going to take it? So, uh, so if you get stuck, close it, walk away, look at something else, start working on something else. Like don't hesitate to put something aside if you're struggling with it, you know. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is like what I love about this is every day's fun, every day's different, every day is being amazed by something new, you know, or something old. Like I like the projects I had about phone calls about like Black Friday Record Store Day is all stuff albums I really really enjoy that are like peak albums, things that have been influences for me. And then I started seeing some of the assets they started sending over, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't realize there was all this stuff that nobody's seen. Like what can we create? Like what can we show? You know that
Yeah.
something a little bit different, change it, like not completely change the story, but like accent the story that exists already. You know the visual story. Like what can we do to like build this into a new era? So
Which is what
yeah,
people, we believe, are looking for with
yeah,
new physical media. Like there has
yeah,
to be a reason why
Yeah.
you're reissuing these projects at this
Yeah.
point in time when they've many cases been reissued multiple times. Like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
can you add? What
Yeah.
further in-depth analysis, imagery,
Yeah.
storytelling
Yeah.
can you bring to
Yeah.
this potentially iconic
Yeah.
release that hasn't already been discussed?
Yeah. I mean, there's people out there like, I mean, there's albums that are like 56 years old and they've been reissued, 25, 30 times over the years. But as you get closer to the modern times, you're getting like deluxe reissues that have like more bonus tracks, more demos or whatever ends up being tacked onto it. Uh, but you don't want to like those people that have bought it so many damn times, like don't want to buy the same thing again and again and again. Like
Yeah.
if you look at like Discogs boards, that's like the number one thing that people would be like, oh, this was reissued already on like 10 years ago. Like it's just a repackaging, and it's like, okay, yeah, let's not do a repackage. There's sometimes like I have a conversation with a client and they're like, well, okay, when it was reissued 10 years ago, these are the photos we use. So we're just going to not use any of those, like what can we show that's new? What can we add to it's new? Like where in the archives hasn't been touched before that we can show some pieces, uh, but yeah, I just like, I'm such a physical person. Like there's part of me that like struggles with an album just being like a digital version, like I want to hold a CD. I want to hold a record. I want somebody to walk into a record store and be so excited by something that they see on the shelf that they hadn't seen before, or if they had seen it before, it's something bigger and better than what they got last time. Like I don't want them to feel like they got cheated, because I would feel the same as well. Like, I like, yeah, I mean, there's records I've been buying for 30 years and I have multiple iterations of, and I want to perpetually think I'm bettering it, like I'm making my collection better, but also, making my interest in that particular album better, so.
Well, records are expensive, so
Yeah. And
they
that's
better,
why,
they better look good at this point.
Yeah. Nobody wants to pay $40 for a record that's just like, it's just like,
Yeah.
you gotta put your, like, as a designer and as a label, you have to put your time into it. Nobody just wants a one for one, but at the same time, like, I think vinyl is fantastic. The labels and to people like out there, start buying CDs. CDs are great. Like
That's what I keep
CDs are
I love
amazing.
CDs.
Yeah. I'm looking at a stack of about 30 of them above me. I have like probably another 100 underneath the bed over here that are underneath here in the office. It's like a CD, especially in jazz or Grateful Dead or like long form stuff. I mean, more so for me in the office, I don't want to get up every 15 minutes and flip the record. There's some days where I'm like listening to something, I'm like, for a project or whatever, and I have the test pressing, so I'll listen to the record. But and I'm not one of those people, like, I like digital music. I'll listen to digital music, but I'd rather have the physical CD in front of me. Like I feel like I'm having a deeper connection with it, So to me, it's like I've been telling people like, buy CDs now, because like in 10 years when like the real big revival is in and people are like trying to buy the stuff that only came on CD, at this point it's going to be stupid money. Like like we look at 90s records that are going for 300 $400 that are finally getting reissued now. That same thing is going to happen with CDs that are being released at this point.
I keep looking at my 90s collection of CDs, and it's a great collection, and I'm like, there's no way these records are still in print, like new CDs. Like, you're never going to find these CDs again till the next revival.
And I mean,
there'll be no CD plants left at that point, so it'll be like vinyl was 20 years ago.
Exactly. And I even like, I'm a person, like, when I go into a record store, I'm looking at the records for influence. I'm also looking for things that I'm purchasing, but I'll go over to the CD area and it's like, there's some CDs that are like as cheap as like $3, a buck or whatever it is. And I'll take a chance on it. It's like, oh, I just bought like some John Lennon reissues. I can't remember which album it was. It was like it was Imagine or whatever it was, but it had like a second CD of all these like demos and rehearsals and stuff like that. And I was like, I had no clue this even existed, but I want to hear it. I want to take a chance on it. And like at $5, like, you can't lose, sometimes a record, like, like you'll spend 20, $30 on a record and you like end up liking a handful of tracks, or it's like something you never heard before and you took a gamble on it. You still spent like 20, $30 and you kind of fable and maybe you got like a little like cheated or a little bummed by like how you used your money that day. But like a CD like never disappoints. I feel like I'm living in this perpetual cycle of media. It's like I went through my phase where I was buying only CDs, and I went through my phase of only buying records. Now I'm back in my like phase of like buying CDs because like that's like I like my tastes are maybe a little more esoteric, a little more interesting in the jazz side of things. So like I'd rather buy a $15 CD that I can like hear like all the way through and not have to like get up and like ruin the mood or whatever, by flipping it. So
Well,
yeah,
certain
yeah,
recordings
yeah,
were made for the CD. I mean, they
mhm,
really were made for a long format,
yeah,
7,
yeah,
76, 78 minute
yeah, yeah,
experience versus
yeah,
getting up 2, 3
yeah,
times to
yeah, yeah,
change a record.
yeah. Like, can you imagine? Like, it's like when you think of like I just bought a copy, like a reissue of Tommy recently. And
Okay.
now Tommy is finally officially like on a single CD. Like it fits on a single CD now, compared to like in the '90s and the 2000s when it was still on two CDs. Somehow it fits on one CD now.
Hmm.
But I was thinking of one time I was listening to it, I was like, man, you'd had to get up 4 times to listen to this record. 4 times, like, and disrupt, like whatever you were partaking in that time. Maybe like something would lapse, like, maybe you forgot to get up and like turn that record over and like 5, 10 minutes would go by. Who knows what happened during that time? But like when you listen to it as a CD, like you're immersed from like the first note to that last note,
Absolutely.
that's pretty wild and it's pretty fun, so and I mean the same thing with like Grateful Dead records, or like you got a 45-minute jam, it might be over like 2 or 3 sides on a record, but like on a CD, you can listen to that whole thing and just zone out for like a whole hour. That's fun. So,
Good stuff.
uh, but any
Absolutely.
media, any physical media is a good thing. Like
Physical media.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. As it says on your head, like it has to exist. Record stores have to exist. Bookstores have to exist. Concerts need to exist. It's a scapegoat for myself. It's a scapegoat for everybody. It's like, and maybe scapegoat is not the right word, but like I left that concert last night with the Jerry Garcia symphonic thing, and I was like, oh man, I got like pep in my step. This was like so much fun. Like you need that little bit of energy to like kind of change your mood, change like your atmosphere. Like you need something to pick you up, especially in these kind of like weird times that we're living in at this point.
These
So
weird dystopian
and
digital
yeah,
times
yeah,
that
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
physical
yeah,
whatever it is a
yeah.
real
Yeah.
cure.
It's like going to see a concert is no different than getting a vitamin C shot. Like you need that boost. You need to check in with yourself. You need to go experience something. It could be a concert, it could be buying a record, it could be going to your record store and talking to like the guy behind the counter that you've never talked to before because you were too like nervous to talk to them, but they saw something that you're buying, they made a comment. Talk to those people. They're interesting. They'll turn you on to things that you never imagined in your life. Like I have a store that I go to with my kids, Newbury Comics down in Norwood. I
Sure.
love those guys. Maybe they're watching this. If so, I love all the guys that work there. They're all fantastic. Anytime I go in, they're perpetually turning me on to things. They're like, "Oh, have you heard this record? Have you heard this?" It could be any era. It could be something brand new that came out that I didn't even know existed in a like a genre that I don't like have. And maybe I have general interest in it, but I just don't know anything about it. But talking to people, find out what people are listening to is like one of the greatest experiences that you can have in this career. And like it's just, yeah, you meet interesting people, you find out interesting things. It could be music, it could be art. It's just go in with an open mind, and you can find a lot of pretty fantastic things out. So yeah,
Well, I think that's
yeah,
a good motto to kind of wrap up is
yeah,
like go with an open mind and stay
yeah,
curious
yeah,
and really get your hands dirty.
yeah, absolutely. Do it. You have to. If you don't, that's your fault.
Very good. Well,
Yeah,
Darryl, thank you so
yeah,
much for your time and your insight,
yeah.
and keep up the incredible work.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, thank you for making my stuff look so good as well. Not my stuff, only my stuff, but also the labels I work with. We're always like happy. We're always ecstatic. Your like customer service is fantastic. You guys are always looking out for things. Like I sometimes think I'm handing over like a perfect file, and they're like somebody come back and be like, "Oh, that was like off a little bit. Like, you got a weird dot pattern. Can you fix that up? Like, or can we fix up for you?" So thank you perpetually for making me look good, making the labels look good. We really, really appreciate it. So
Well, thank you for the
yeah,
kind words, and
yeah,
hope to work on more projects soon.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.